Christmas comes but once a year. But for one man...
Humbug.
That's once too often.
All right, so you were at a different screening of A Christmas Carol than we were. Robert Zemeckis is A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I saw it in IMAX 3D, which is how I thought you guys were going to see it.
Which makes me wonder because we saw it in just plain 3D.
You guys saw it in 3D.
We saw it at the AMC theater, the AMC Barton Creek, which you know is not all that great in the first place.
It's the shittiest theater.
I mean, respect to the theater, they do the best they can.
That always has sound issues and always has dim bulbs, and aside from that, they're great people.
Well, this was this screen was okay. I mean, nothing broke down. We could hear the sound, but we didn't see it in the same IMAX theater that you did. So I'm curious to know if that made a difference in your opinion.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel on it because you wouldn't tell me. You were just like, we'll find out when you record. I don't know if you guys liked it or hated it or if I'm the odd man out.
No, I actually liked the movie. I had some complaints with it, but I gave it a full price.
Right on. See, I like it a lot, but I like it for much more intellectual reasons and emotional reasons, which I think is probably the big problem this film's going to have. This film is a perfect adaptation of Dickens' original written word. I mean, it is A Christmas Carol, which a lot of people don't realize. When he wrote it as a horror story. It wasn't written as this feel-good Christmas thing that was supposed to become an iconic Christmas tale. He was writing his ghost story. He was writing his supernatural story.
So interesting that you brought that up because when we were talking about the movie, we said that the original story is a very dark movie. One of the things that we see in these interpretations of the film is they get to that midsection where they go to the ghost of Christmas present.
Yeah.
And it's always depicted as cheerful before they move on to the darker part of the movie. And in this movie, it's actually a scary part.
In the book, it's scary. That character, the Ghost of Christmas Present, is a scary character. And even in most versions, the thing that this film is going to suffer from is the expectation game, in which almost every version of A Christmas Carol plays the Ghost of Christmas Past and the Ghost of Christmas Present as jovial, friendly, likable spirits.
Yeah.
It's not until we get to the Ghost of Christmas Future where
who's pretty much the Grim Reaper.
In the book, they're all creepy, and the only one that's even really kind of likable is the Ghost of Christmas Past, who is written as being both likable but off-putting at the same time, and being something weird that never quite connects with Scrooge. And Scrooge is despicable in the book. I mean, there's a section of the book where it talks about how even dogs, leading blind men, hate Scrooge and drag their owners into doorways so that they don't have to, because being around Scrooge is one of the worst things he saw.
Scrooge is an asshole.
And so this movie is all about that version of the book. It is about telling the horror story aspect of A Christmas Carol. But because Zemeckis takes a lot of the heart out of the story, it becomes somewhat disconnected. And I think audiences, I watched as an audience, walked out split on it, where some people really liked it for the reasons I liked it. But people hated the fact that it didn't have that big, joyous ending that all the other versions of Christmas Carol have, because they play more on the heart of it. Like in this version, you don't really feel for Tiny Tim all that much. I mean, he's there, but you really feel for Bob Cratchit, who's played by Gary Oldman, who's great. And everything with Bob Cratchit is fantastic. But they don't focus on Tiny Tim and pull your heartstrings like all the other versions do. So it feels very different, and that's really going to disconnect with people. And I think the other problem is because Zemeckis knew how dark he was making it, he added a few extra little tweaks to bring the kids back into it.
Now, what are those tweaks? Because in our reviews, we mentioned something like that too.
Well, there's the big roller coaster ride through the streets of London.
Yeah, where he shrinks.
Where he shrunk, which I dug half of it. I dug the fact that he was being chased the whole time. It's not just a wild, I'm on a water slide. He's running from the Ghost of Christmas Future, and it's spooky that way. And there's a sense of foreboding dread there, which is a great metaphor, but he's still a small Scrooge with a voice like this that is sliding across the rooftop.
It's played for laughs, and it's done in the darkest part of the movie.
And it's done so that kids don't get totally freaked out.
Yeah, that's what Cyrus was saying.
but that's not entirely 100% forgivable. I understand why you do it. It still doesn't totally work.
Yeah.
I really, really like what they were doing. I really liked where he was going with it. And I love his adaptation because it's the horror adaptation. But it's not the adaptation I'm going to want to go to and revisit on Christmas Eve because it doesn't leave you in a Christmassy mood.
You will be haunted by 3 spirits. That's the chance and hope. I'd rather not.
Expect the first. Tomorrow when the bell tolls 1.
Couldn't I take them all at once and have it over with, Jacob?
Expect the second, the next night at the same hour. And the third, upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more.
I mean, because it still ends very happily.
He stays true to the ending, and it still ends on a happy note because Dickens always, almost always ended on a happy. Well, I mean, not always, but he liked to give his heroes somewhat happy endings.
So, what about the goth kids and the wrist cutters, or the self cutters? You think they're gonna like this movie a little better than?
They're gonna like the creepiness of it, and they're gonna like the renditions of the ghosts. And he does stuff that he does stuff that's straight out of the book that you never see in any of the versions. But like any adaptation, in order to stay within time, that means stuff gets cut. And what gets cut are some of people's favorite moments from the film. And the movie it reminded me most of, did you ever see the 2000 version of Hamlet?
Yeah.
Where they took out all the comedy and just left in all the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
That is kind of what this is. Cause what they cut out Uncle Fezziwig putting Scrooge together with the girl at the dance. And we cut out him walking and having a romantic talk about spending the future with the girl he was betrothed to. And we get mostly the depressing stuff with being hooked up with that girl, and it all feels very artificial.
Well, yeah. Speaking of that part, I thought it was awkward showing the different stages of Scrooge. It was awkward showing him like making the transition from being like this jovial young man to being like this middle-aged guy who's consumed with money. You don't see that change. It's just all of a sudden he's that person.
Right. And that it's certain. Now, I know Zemeckis had to think, well, everybody's seen that. Everybody knows the story by heart. They know these things happen, so let's show them the stuff that they don't know happens in the book, like that great scene where he looks out the window and there's all the spirits flying around.
Yeah.
That sequence, you never see that in any Christmas Carol, and it's so fucking good, and it's so heavy and morbid and great.
And you don't ever see... Marley, with Jacob Marley, you never see him be as creepy as he is in this.
Well, he's real. That's the thing, is everything that's played for horror and creepiness, Zemeckis nails, and it's so good. The door knocker scene, which is an infamous scene from the story, has never been done better than it was done here. I mean, the door knocker scene is fantastic, and Jim Carrey is incredible.
I was going to ask you what you thought about him. That's a great performance by him.
He was great, and he and the ghosts are exactly why this was done in CG. I mean, I understand that because a lot of people are like, why didn't they? If they're going to spend that much money, why didn't they just make a live action version? And it's because there's no way to do Scrooge the way they do it here. I mean, he's spindly, he's thin as a rail. You can tell he's a guy that eats only what it takes to live and not a morsel more because he doesn't want to waste anything.
Yeah.
And his fingers are so bony and creepy, and everything about his performance just nails it and makes an incredible Scrooge.
He's a total embodiment of it, decrepit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is a version of A Christmas Carol that you've never seen before, but it is not the feel-good version that you'd expect out of Disney or Jim Carrey.
No, and it's funny that they should put the Disney name on there because I think it's going to be really intense for little kids who watch it. I mean, it's a creepy movie.
Yeah.
But so you gave it full price then?
I give it full price with reservations. I mean, it's something that you have to know what you're going into. You have to know that you're not going into the feel good version of A Christmas Carol. You're going into Dickens' ghost story. You're going into his horror story, and it's a cool Christmas themed ghost story. I mean, the original, if you've never read the original story, read it. It is, there's a reason why it is one of the greatest classics of all time, because it's an incredible story that nobody bothers to read because they've seen the movie.
Because they've seen it over and over again.
And the thing is you haven't the language. And that was another thing I really loved about this is every word that's spoken is straight out of the book. They did not adapt it or update it. They left Dickens' beautiful, glorious language there.
Is all of it even? Because there are some lines in there that seem like it was.
Well, there's probably stuff that they wrote, like when he's on the I'm small and sliding down.
Oh, when
I'm
he
sure
says,
there's stuff there, but all of the major lines in the
there's enough lines lifted from the book
that it's straight the way it was written out of the book to where it even sounds a little awkward because it is so 17th, 18th century Britain, London. And I think it's just a fantastic film. I absolutely love what he did with it. I think it was an incredible version of the film, but it's not the best version ever made.
What'd you think about the CGI?
I think it's mocap, and I think mocap is. I'm not thrilled with mocap.
That's motion capture for those who don't know.
Motion capture. I don't get it. It's one of those things where I understand where Zemeckis is going, that he's so involved with the actors being involved in the performance that he wants to play with that. But I look at what Pixar's doing and where they're getting the performances out of the voices and then making these expressive characters. I don't get why they're making lesser CG just so that they can say, but the actor made every single one of those movements.
I can kind of see why they want to capture the realism because human movement is inconsistent. Because if you animate something, there's an unnatural perfection to it. It's very smooth and it just makes things seem less real. So when they motion capture,
sometimes your hand will be on the table and then it'll blink and it's like up in the air.
Yeah, well, it pops right up there. Yeah, no, it's like like there's just certain things. Nothing is it moves in a complete perfect arc in real life. We all have these these inconsistent movements in our body language, and so I think they're trying to capture that with motion capture because it's just hard to capture it with animators trying to do it. But they want to exaggerate the features of certain characters, like with Scrooge, like you say. I mean, he's inhumanly thin, and he has like a chin that is grotesquely large. His nose is too big,
and all the major characters look great.
Yeah, it's only those side characters look like dead people.
The side characters look like they're just it's the glass-eyed, expressionless dead again.
Yeah,
when every time they're at a dinner party or something, you just see blank expressions staring out into space, and it's like, why did you make that motion capture? Why can't you just have if a character doesn't speak, why not just have them be animated straight up? I don't understand why you're doing this. And then the one person who I thought was really terrible motion captured was the nephew, played by
I know who you're talking about. Colin Firth.
Colin Firth.
Yeah.
Who Colin Firth is great. And that's exactly the character that I'm pretty sure Colin Firth has probably played that character in a movie before, because that's exactly the type of person you cast Colin Firth as. But he just looks so like they pasted his face onto a CG body.
Yeah.
Whereas with Bob Cratchit, Gary Oldman looks incredible, and Gary Oldman's expressions sell everything with the Cratchit house. In fact, every time we're in the Cratchit house, I got emotional because I could feel Gary Oldman just nailing that scene and just making you feel the hopeful depression of the Cratchit house. But at the same time, seeing the nephew, whose name eludes me right now, that always felt artificial. And that was, that character's so important to the Scrooge character and to A Christmas Carol that the emotion is just a little disconnected in this. And I think that's where people are going to have issues with this film, is that they're not going to feel emotionally connected. So I do give it a full price, but I give it with the reservations that you have to know what you're going in for.
All right, good. Then there you go. That's your opinion.
That's me.